What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for some more content for you guys, and probably the last of the transfer window content, as what we're going to be doing today is reacting to the pre-season or the pre-transfer window predictions that we did make of who Spurs will bring in, who Spurs will sell. Makes for interesting viewing, to be honest. We got one of them spot on, but I think that transfer was probably well and wrapped up.
Nah, we called it, mate. We called it.
But look, let's get into it, and let's start off with your incomings.
So I went for Vicario to come in goal. Tapsoba,
wow, what a prediction.
Unbelievable prediction. Spot on with the fee as well, if you can see. Tapsoba for 30 million and Lacroix for 22. I went for the wrong Wolfsburg centre-back for the backup because we signed Van der Ven instead. Maddison and Scott in midfield. I overcooked the price. It looks like on Maddison. And Nico Williams I went for as an attacker. We ended up obviously going for a free transfer, so it didn't exactly pan out. 169 million I went for our spend, which is actually probably not too far away from what we actually spent.
We did 170 or 170,
so I got the price fairly close.
Not bad at all. I mean, in terms of those signings, would you have preferred any of those to the ones we brought in? Obviously, Tapsoba. I mean, for me, I prefer Mickey Van der Ven to Lacroix. Maddison is Maddison. Alex Scott. Would you have, I mean, he went to Bournemouth in the end.
We signed a midfielder. We didn't sign anyone else, did we? And then obviously Williams I much prefer to Solomon, that's for sure. Yeah. So I think we could have pushed the boat out a bit more. Obviously we needed a second centre-back. We never got one. So I think I was maybe a bit more ambitious than what Tottenham were in the summer.
Yeah, well, not quite a surprise, but
yeah, shocker there.
Let's get into my incomings. I also went for Vicario for 17 million. Surprise. I went for Tapsoba for 40 million, Tosin for 8 million, Maddison for 50, and Jota for 20. I mean, Jota ended up going to Saudi. I still stand by that. I'd love to have seen him through the door. There were rumours that he was leaving Saudi, but that never really materialized. Maddison for 50, overcooked by 10 million. Tosin, I stand by. We still should have brought him in. 8 million was probably a bit too cheap, though. You're probably looking at maybe like 15 to 20 million to convince Fulham to sell him. I mean, Tapsoba, we got Van der Ven in the end. I'm very happy with Van der Ven. So I mean, 135 million spend. I kind of undercooked it
A bit, and also, but you did get it spot on that we would only get one midfielder. Yeah, which are only Maddison, which is a bit surprised. 2
forwards.
We ended up getting 2 forwards. So, yeah,
would you prefer that, or would you prefer the business that Spurs actually did?
What you've done?
Yeah.
Would I have swapped Tapsoba for Van der Ven while adding Tosin, while taking away
Brennan Johnson
and Solomon in place of Jota? I probably prefer our business, to be honest. But I think I would have preferred my business.
Yeah. Well, I think the defense is the main area for me. I mean, it's kind of like if I would have gone with my defense and the rest of the Spurs business, I think that would have been a spot on window, to be honest.
Yeah, just that one centre back really is the big issue, isn't it?
And the thing is, right, like if we would have brought in a Tosin with a Van der Ven, that would have given us more cover on both left back and centre back. So that is a big source of frustration for me in terms of what we did this summer. And yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating that we're just so short at centre-back, especially selling Davinson Sanchez after the window even closed.
And it was clear that Postecoglou wanted another centre-back. He said in his press conference in pre-season that they were looking for another centre-back as well. And I guess the narrative was we didn't get one because we couldn't shift out the outgoings, and we ended up shifting one off after the window. So ultimately very frustrating. It's what we predicted. At least 2 centre-backs in. We only got the one. So It's a bit frustrating on that front, but I don't even think we were that like asking for too much with what we predicted.
No, not at all.
And I think that was fairly similar in terms of profiles of what we got.
I think like the caliber of player that have come through the door this summer, and not only this summer, probably since Paratici has come in, I think has been very good, and you can definitely see a squad forming now and the rebuild really starting to take shape. But let's have a look at the outgoings that we predicted, starting off with yours.
99 million I predicted outgoings. I've probably got the figure not too far off, but not the players, I don't think.
We brought in like 110 million, didn't we?
Yeah, it depends. Kane and Wings, that's it. Yeah, so Sanchez for 8 million. Well, not too bad predictions.
Oh, Sanchez as well.
Sessegnon for 10, didn't leave. Rodon for 7, went on loan. Tanganga, I think, is that 6? I think that's 6 million, so that's a pretty accurate prediction. Dyer for 9, he's still here. Perisic for 2.5, he's still here.
Couldn't
White
even give Dyer away for free.
White for 500,000. I don't know what the price was at the end. Højbjerg for 35 million. But he's still here. Winks for 5.5, so I thought we would get half what we got. And then Lascelles over 16, and he's still here. And obviously Ndombele is gone as well, and I predicted him to stay. So, I'm pretty happy with some of the prices. And the overall fee is not too bad in terms of prediction, but yeah, a lot of the players didn't quite materialise.
Yeah. It's funny that, you had Lascelles to go for 18 million and, you couldn't have predicted the preseason he had, I guess, and that's what really got him his trust in the manager for him to stay. Højbjerg, that was a close one. It was like that could have very easily happened, but it just didn't for one reason or another. So I think fairly spot on with the players going out. I think Sestion probably would have gone for around that price if he didn't get injured, and the rest of them are fairly all right, apart from Perisic that never left.
Yeah, exactly. But Tanganga and Sanchez, the fees are pretty accurate.
Yeah, well, let's go and have a look at mine, see how close I got. I got Lloris to go on a free, he's still here. Sanchez to go for 5 million. He ended up going for 8. Was it euros or pounds? 8?
I think 9.5 million euros.
Right.
It's about £8 million.
Sessignon for 10, which he never ended up going. Reguilon for 5. We let him go on a free loan for half the season. Rodon for 5, he's gone on loan. Perisic for 3, he's ended up staying. Harvey White is Harvey White. Winks, again, same as you, I half the valuation. And Lascelles I had going for 20 million. Funny how neither of us had Ndombele going.
Yeah, because I think at the start, I can't remember when we met, what date we made this prediction, but I think at this point it looked more likely.
Vicario came in.
It looked more likely at this point that Ndombele was going to stay and Lascelles was leaving at this point. But obviously, pre-season happened and things changed, and things can change very quickly, which you can't predict.
None of us could predict Harry Kane leaving, though.
I think it was more just hoping, that I would say, than looking at the cold hard logic of the situation. But yeah, we both had Kane to stay and didn't really pan out that way, unfortunately. We did get a good fee for him for a player who's 30 in the last year of his contract, but still hurts a bit. But look, if we moved on from him, it is what it is. I've moved on from it.
In terms of the starting lineup or the squad outlook, if we would have gone with your signings, let's have a look at that.
So I would have had Reguilon as backup left back. Would have had Davis as backup left centre back, so that's pretty accurate. I would have had Scott and Ndombele in the midfield, but I think that front line with Nico Williams added in there looks a lot healthier.
And Harry Kane, obviously. Up front. So I think I would rather that squad, to be honest, than the squad we have now. But I am pretty happy with the squad we have now. You got to remember, look, Kulusevski's backup wingers are Gil and Porro. Now we have Brendan Johnson, so that's a bit of an upgrade. So, and obviously you can replace Ndombele with Lascelles in the midfield. I predicted Basuma to be the number 6. So I think it's not too far off, to be fair, what we actually have. It's not like a million miles away. But I think that probably has a bit more better depth, I would say. Yeah, I would agree with that. If you look at mine, it's not too dissimilar, to be honest. I got Vicario and Forster in goal, that's what it is. On the right, you got Porro, Royale and Spence, where it's just Porro and Royale now. In the right centre-back, you got Romero and Tosin. I'd much prefer that to what we got now. Tapsoba, Dyer and Tanganga. I'm happy Tanganga's gone. I'm happy Dyer's been shafted out. But like I keep saying, I'm just worried about the lack of depth at centre-back. Davis is going to take that spot now unless Ashley Phillips... I'm not sure if Ashley Phillips is favoured on the right or the left, but I know he's two-footed. So I'm guessing
he's more on the right.
Both.
I believe it's more on the right.
Even if so, I'm guessing he can play both if he's two-footed. But in terms of Tapsoba versus Van de Ven, now it's all said and done now. We preferred Tapsoba before the transfer happened. Are we still thinking like that?
It's only been a few games. I know Van de Ven's been brilliant. This is nothing to do with about not liking Van de Ven at all. I think Van de Ven we always said throughout the summer, I prefer Tapsoba, but I also really like Van de Ven. And I think he'd be a great player, and he's turned out to be a great player for us. So if you ask me right now, would I go back in time and change it? No, but I still think Tapsoba's a better player. I don't think 4 games has changed that. Tapsoba's also just signed a new contract at Leverkusen. They really trust him. He's a quality centre back, Tapsoba. But the only thing I would say is potentially Van de Ven is a better fit to partner Romero than Tapsoba, which is what we alluded to. So I'm liking Van de Ven. I've liked both, to be honest. That would have been perfect, but it is what it is. So I'm not upset about where we've ended up. I like Van de Ven a lot, so I don't think it's anything to have regrets about.
And it's also like how quickly he's taken to the team as well, and how quickly he's fitted in and he suits the system as well. Everything just seems a bit perfect at the moment with him. So I've got no complaints whatsoever going for Van de Ven ahead of Tapsoba. But again, like probably would have liked both of them in. But if you go back to the predictions that I made, just to finish it off, we've got Udogie Davis, which is pretty much what it is. Bissouma Skip, Maddison and Ndombele, Bentancur, Sarr, and Højbjerg. So, I mean, very similar midfield options apart from it's Ndombele instead of Lo Celso there, which I think I prefer what we got now. Hill and Kulusevski, it's Brennan Johnson, Hill and Kulusevski now. Kane, Richarlison, which is now Richarlison and Son. And on the left is Son and Jota I got there, which is now who
Perisic and Solomon.
Solomon and Son. So, what do I prefer? Do I prefer my transfer window or do I prefer the one that we've actually got now? It's a hard one, to be honest, because there's some elements that I prefer in what we got, but there's some elements that I prefer in this. I mean, the defensive cover in this still doesn't fill me with much confidence, to be honest. I mean, apart from Tosin, I'm not happy with Dyer, Tanganga, Davis in that backup. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a hard one. What do you think?
Still probably better than Ashley Phillips. I mean, look, a lot of people are excited about Ashley Phillips, and I'm excited about him as well. But people got to realise that being an 18-year-old centre back is very different from being an 18-year-old forward or even a winger or midfielder or something like that. Centre backs have a lot of responsibility. Any mistake and it could cost them a goal. It's very different from having say an 18-year-old striker. And when we're talking about pathways to the first team, it's much easier to give a striker a chance, like in the first team as a youngster, without having that fear that they could cost the team. Because let's say an 18-year-old striker misses a chance, it's not a big deal. Another chance might come. It's not going to cost your team potentially points. But if an 18-year-old centre-back makes a big mistake and, cost your team points in a season, that can really affect their confidence. So it's a very different kind of position. That's why I'm very hesitant to just put my full trust in them as our backups, even though I want to see a pathway, even for young centre-backs. But I feel like as a centre-back, you just need a bit more experience. You need games under your belt. I think it can almost be unfair on an 18-year-old centre-back to thrust them into Premier League football when they haven't played a Premier League game. And people will judge them on it because we need points and we need results. And so people will judge their performances. So that's what I'm saying about the centre-back situation and putting Phillips and Dorrington as our centre-backs. But if Ange wants to go that way, I'm all for it. And part of me is excited to see what they're all about and see them in action in the first team and see if they're ready to step up. But I think in a perfect world, even Ange wouldn't want that situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was the one calling for centre-backs as well as we were. So I do feel probably behind the scenes there is a bit of frustration on Ange's part that we failed to get in another centre-back. I mean, when have you ever seen an 18-year-old centre-back come into the Premier League and actually be really good and help the team as much as a second choice centre back?
It's very rare. It's really rare. I can't even Saliba had to go on loans and came back. And yes, he was still young, 21, I think, when he started starting for Arsenal last season. But that's exactly, he was 3 years on loan. So
and he had a year at a top
and
level
that's like the perfect kind of progression you need as a centre back. I can't think of any off the top of my head who were 18. I remember Phil Jones when he was at Blackburn. He might have been about 19 when he was starting for Blackburn and then got the move off to Man United off the back of that. So I might be wrong. He might have been a bit older, but I remember he was very young still. So maybe that's one example. But I can't think of too many centre backs at that age that have been trusted by Premier League teams and then gone on to done big things. So I just think it's a massive risk.
Yeah, I completely agree. In terms of, this is the actual transfer window we did this year. So Vicario in goal, Van de Ven, Phillips as our centre-backs, Maddison as the midfielder, and Johnson, Valise and Solomon in terms of the attacking line. I mean, Valise we're not going to see for a while. That's firmly one for the future. Solomon's getting his minutes already and had a really good first start in the Premier League against Burnley. Johnson, I think, is going to be a really good signing for us. Maddison is a top signing. Van der Ven and Vicario are both looking really good as well. Phillips, obviously, I think like he was probably brought in assuming that he was going to be one for the future.
Yeah, and that's what Ali Gold said. I'm pretty sure when he brought him in.
But he's been drafted straight into the first team. But also, when Ali Gold also said when Phillips came in that he's going to be around the first team.
He did.
Like, he didn't say that he's going to be thrusted straight into the under-21s. He said he's going to be in and around the first team.
Well, he said he was going to go out on tour with the player. I don't know if he actually did, but he said I think he was on the bench of the Barca game, but I don't think he actually went on tour in the end because I think the delay in the transfer delayed that. But I don't think there was any indication when he signed that he was going to be a first-team player in terms of this season.
Yeah, but I was watching, actually, I don't know if you saw, did you see the video that was going around Twitter yesterday with his individual highlights against Nottingham Forest last season?
Not that particular one, but I saw a individual highlights video.
Yeah, there was one particularly against Nottingham Forest because it was against a Premier League opposition. And he was playing against Jesse Lingard and Awani and people like that. And he looked really good, to be honest. He really did. And he looked like, you know, when you see like an 18-year-old on a football pitch and they just look so much younger than the rest of the players on the pitch and they just look so much smaller. That wasn't the case with Ashley Phillips. He actually looked like a physical match for anyone on that pitch.
Yeah, he is 6'4". He's a big unit, and he's only going to get stronger as he grows into himself with the years of experience. So I've got no doubt he's a defender of high potential. Maybe he can do a job for us, like in the odd game. But I'm just saying, if we pick up a big injury, it's not the odd game. It's bam, he's in the team for like 10 games, and then we'll see how he does.
Yeah, and his ball playing ability looks absolutely insane as well. But look, in terms of the incomings. And well, let's go to the outgoings as well, and then we can judge it all together. The outgoings, obviously, Kane, Winks, Sanchez, Mora, Spence, gone for loan, Ndombele, Reguilon, Roden, Tanganga, all loan. The only one on that list that has an obligation or a potential obligation is Tanganga. And I think the only one that has an option is Ndombele, right? Or Roden, maybe?
Spence. No, I don't think Spence has an option. Reguilon definitely doesn't. Roden's on loan to Leeds. I can't remember if they said there was an option in there or not.
Ndombele, there definitely is.
Yeah, 15 million euros for Ndombele. So obviously the bulk of that 114 million coming from Harry Kane. I think it just goes to show again how difficult it's been for us to shift players. And that's something that I hoped we'd do a lot better at. I predicted would sell about 99 million. We actually got more than that, but it was only from a lot less players. It was only just really from Harry Kane. So that's the big failure of this window, is to really shift players for any sort of fees. And look, there's been reports that Daniel Levy's been asking for too much money for a lot of these players, unrealistic fees. Maybe that's the reason we haven't been able to shift them. But obviously, I much prefer my outgoings.
I'm not sure about that, because I think there has been cases this window where we've agreed fees and the players are the ones that have rejected the moves, which is very frustrating. So you can't really blame Daniel Levy for stuff like that when he actually accepts bids and the players are the ones rejecting it.
Well, when he rejects Rennes' bid for Sanchez, you know what I mean? That's frustrating as well.
Yeah, I get that. But I think for the majority of it, he has actually accepted bids for the majority of these players, and they've actually stuck their heels in and refused to leave.
I'd say Højbjerg was definitely an accepted bid from Fulham. Lloris has accepted a number of bids. Dyer, I think we tried to get him out to Bournemouth and stuff, and he was digging their heels in. But I think for a lot of the other players who are still here potentially, I think we haven't really heard about players rejecting the bids.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one player I can think of, which is Davinson Sanchez, where we actively rejected bids where we maybe should have accepted. Apart from that, I think he's pretty much accepted bids that have come in and well under the values.
Yeah.
So at the end of the window on transfer deadline day, it was very late that night. It was 11 o'clock, midnight. We both said around a 4.5 out of 10. I was like 4.5 to 5. Any revisions on that? Do you still stand by that rating?
Well, after a 5-2 win against Burnley, of course, there's revisions. In fact, you can probably say we're probably in a weaker position, arguably, than deadline day, because we've let go of Sanchez and everyone's. I understand what people are saying. Well, we know how bad Sanchez is, and we need to get him out. And I agree with all of that. But you can't just do it so negligently like we have done after the window closed without getting a replacement. And yes, I'm really happy with the incomings. There's not really one incoming that I'm not happy with, to be honest. I really like the signings we've made, but I just think the other side of it, we haven't done well enough at all, and we haven't got a backup centre back in as well. We did sell Harry Kane. It was a good fee though, but I still think that if I look at the squad, I guess if there is one season to have a thin squad, it would be this season. So we've got that going for us. But I still think it is a very thin squad. And I could say here saying, look, actually, I'm revising it and it's an 8 out of 10 because, we've got so many good players and actually we improved the first team and it's really good. And then I can be here in 3 weeks' time and Van de Ven's picked up a long-term injury and Bissouma's picked up an injury and we have no replacements. All of a sudden, we're dropping points left, right, and centre because we've got no depth. Yeah. So it's really, it could go either way. If we get really lucky with injuries, I can sit here at the end of the season saying actually it was a probably 9 out of 10 window because we got no injuries and our first 11 is actually really good. But then if we get injuries, the window starts looking very differently. So I don't really have any revisions, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing for me, I think that when you're looking at the squad now and the amount of games that we're going to play, only 16 games to go, by the way, for the January transfer window, which is not many at all when you're thinking about like how many games do we usually have from this point into the next window. We've got a whole group phase to go to, which is 6 games. You've got cup games to go to. Now it's literally just league games, 1 game a week literally now until the January transfer window. But I'm looking at the squad, right, and I'm looking at every single position. I feel like we've got adequate cover apart from at centre back and at left back. Which is a big source of frustration, but I think like the cover is good as well. It's not even like poor cover. Obviously, if you bring in all these covers at one go and make 9 changes, it ain't going to look good. But I think if you make 1 here and 1 there, it's not going to be too much of a problem for us. So having said that, I think I would probably change my 4.5 to like 6. I would say. I don't think you can get higher than a 6.
Yeah,
because you did sell Harry Kane, our best player in our lifetime. And I know everyone goes, but Harry wanted to leave and you had to sell him. He had 1 year left in his contract, which I agree with completely. But it's the reason why he wanted to leave. And it's the reason for many years why we haven't been going in the right direction and have a player like Harry Kane on our books and not be able to build a team around him and not be able to match his ambitions, I think is completely unforgivable, to be honest. And it's never not going to be unforgivable. And you can try and make up for it and bring in quality players around him, which I think we have done with the likes of Brennan Johnson and Maddison, Van de Ven, Solomon on a free. But you can't just have a throwaway comment like, he wanted to leave. You got to look into it deeper and say why he wanted to leave. And the reason he wanted to leave is because we couldn't match his ambitions. And like I said, I think that's unforgivable. And it's a massive, massive down mark in this window for me. But I do think, looking at the positives, that the rebuild is going very well, I would say. And I would expect that maybe by the end of next summer, this squad should look a lot beefier, and I think that we're on a really good path now, I think.
Do you expect any signings in January?
Yeah, I expect a centre-back. And I was actually going to say before, like, with Tosin only going to have 6 months left in January, I expect us to try for him, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'd like us to try and reinforce the squad in January as well, because who knows what the state of the squad. First of all, we got the AFCON, but I don't think you can just sign players based on a few games, in my opinion. So I don't expect anyone to sign just based on that. But we do have that situation. Yeah. Bentancur will be back as well. And so, yeah, we have to make sure that we got adequate cover in the back line, because right now it's so thin. It's less than paper thin at the moment in the back line. So we're just heavily reliant on Romero and Van de Ven, very heavily reliant. And I also think just in the way we play, I think we are very heavily reliant on Bissouma, actually. And I think if he was to sustain a long-term injury, I'm not saying we wouldn't be able to cope at all, but I reckon would have a lot more difficulty with the structure of the team without Bissouma than with him. So I think as well, he's one to watch out for. But other than that, I think we do have all right cover.
I think your point is proven with Bissouma as well. When you look at, I know it's just pre-season, you shouldn't really read too much into it, but I think you can actually read into patterns of play and maybe not results, but the way the team looks. And we essentially played a very similar team to the Barcelona game and to the Fulham game. The only difference was Bissouma was there for the Barcelona game, and it just made the world of difference. So I think you are right with Basuma. If he gets a long stretch and a long period of time out, then we are going to be in trouble. But for short term, if you put a Bentancur there, you put a Højbjerg there, I don't have too many problems about that.
Yeah, it's about Bentancur. Bentancur's the one I would trust the most because of his ability to be press resistant and break the lines through carries, which I don't think Højbjerg can do. So if Bentancur can really get up to speed in that position when he's fit, then I'm less worried. But right now, if Basuma was to sustain an injury, I think would struggle quite a lot to just break teams down like we have been.
All right. Well, there you have it. That was our reactions to our predictions from the transfer window. Let me know your thoughts of how you thought the transfer window did go this summer for Tottenham Hotspur. How far along are we on this rebuild now? And we'll see you very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
Come on, you Spurs.